All right, let's talk about corporate succession. Now I know it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, right? And usually we think it's just this big, dramatic fight for the corner office. But the truth, it's actually way more important and interesting than that. It's really about a company's survival.
So let's just get this out of the way first. When you hear the word succession, I bet your mind immediately goes to all that high-stakes drama we see on TV. But what happens in the real world is, well, it's less about backstabbing and more about building something that's going to last.
And you can see the difference right here. It's pretty stark, isn't it? On TV, it's all about who's going to win the war. It's aggressive, it's dramatic. But in a real business, successful succession is the complete opposite. It's about creating stability and ensuring the company is still around for the long haul. It's not a prize to be won, it's a future to be built.
To make this all feel a bit more real, we're going to look at the story of an executive named Gil Genio. His experience is, honestly, the perfect example of what can happen when this whole process goes off the rails.
So, here's Gil. He's a top performer at a huge global bank, and everyone knows he's on the fast track. His name is literally on the succession charts for the next big promotion, the guy who's going to run the whole region. Everything seems totally locked in.
And then this happens. Wow. I mean, can you imagine? That one sentence tells you everything you need to know about a massive failure in the system. All the plans, all the templates, they meant nothing because of this huge communication gap. It just goes to show how easily things can get derailed. So the big question is, how do companies avoid a disaster, like what happened to Jill? Well, the smart ones have a playbook. Let's walk through what a good succession process actually looks like and how it can create a much better system for everybody involved.
The thing about good succession planning is that you can't just wing it. It's not something you do when a leader quits. It has to be proactive. It's really a three-step dance. First, you've got to plan way ahead, figure out the key jobs and who could potentially fill them. Then you look at those people and ask, okay, are they ready right now or maybe in a year or two? And finally, and this is the big one, you have to actually invest in them. And we're talking about more than just a weekend training course here.
This is such a great way to visualize what you're trying to build in a future leader. It's called the T profile. You need someone with that deep, specialized knowledge in one area. That's the vertical part of the T. But you also need them to have broad skills and experiences across the business. That's the horizontal top bar. In today's world, you absolutely need both to lead effectively.
And here we are right back at the scene of the crime in Gil's story. Look at that last point, open and transparent communication. It really is the glue that holds this entire process together. You can have the best plans in the world, but if you don't talk to people, it's all just going to fall apart.
Okay, so even if you have the perfect playbook, this stuff is hard. There are a lot of common hurdles that companies trip over. So let's break down the 6 biggest ones, and more importantly, how you can get around them. All right, hurdle number 1. This one is probably the most human of all of them. It's that natural instinct we all have to just keep things the way they are.
So how do you fight that resistance? Well, you don't fight it. You involve people. You bring them into the process instead of just dropping a decision on them from on high. You explain why the change is happening, what the benefits are, and you give them a chance to ask questions. You make them feel like a part of it.
Hurdle number 2. Think about this. What happens when a leader who's been there for decades finally leaves? They walk out the door with so much knowledge that's not written down anywhere. That's a huge problem, right? The loss of all that institutional knowledge. The best solution is to build a bridge between the old and the new. You create a real mentorship period where the new leader can basically shadow the old one, absorbing all that invaluable information about how things really work. Okay, so hurdles 3 and 4 are really 2 sides of the same coin. They're all about what happens to roles over time. They can either get really stale or they can get really, really fuzzy. A leadership change is actually the perfect time to fix both of these problems. It's a chance to give that veteran leader a new challenge so they don't stagnate, and at the same time, you can use the transition to totally redefine the role for the new person coming in, making it crystal clear and ready for the future.
Now for our 5th challenge. This is the one that gets missed all the time in the middle of all the strategic planning, but it is so important. It's about the people.
We're talking about the emotional roller coaster for the team. People get attached to their leaders, and when they leave, it can be really tough.
A smart company doesn't ignore that. They acknowledge the feelings, they show some empathy, and they offer real support to help the team move forward.
And here we are, the final hurdle. And honestly, this might be the most frustrating one of all, because it's a total breakdown of the system itself.
It's simply not following through. You've done all the work to identify your ready now people, and then they just sit there for years. You know what happens then, right? Your best talent gets fed up and they leave. They find a company that will actually act on its promises. It's a huge, self-inflicted wound.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the organization's role, but succession is a deeply personal thing for the people living through it. So let's break down some advice for everyone involved in a big transition.
If you're the leader on your way out, your main job is to make sure your successor doesn't fail. That means being open about your plans, giving them help without breathing down their neck, and most importantly, showing everyone that you believe in them. It's about securing your legacy. And what if you're on the team? Well, this is your chance to really shape what comes next. Don't just sit back and let it happen to you. Lean in, ask questions, understand the new vision, and focus on building a great working relationship with your new boss from day one. So let's go back to Gil Genio one last time. We know he was disappointed, but how did it all end up for him? Because the way his story wraps up has a really powerful lesson for all of us.
So yeah, he was pretty crushed. He felt like he'd been completely overlooked. But then, a little while later, a brand new opportunity popped up, a global role based at the company's headquarters. And you know what? He realized the job he'd missed out on, it actually wasn't the right one for him anyway. And that brings us to his final takeaway, which is just perfect. Sometimes what feels like a major setback is really just the universe clearing the path for something better. It's an incredible lesson in just being patient, doing great work, and keeping things in perspective. So when you boil it all down, succession is so much more than just picking the next people in line. It's this ongoing cycle of growing your people, being honest and open, and managing change with care. It's how great companies make sure they're not just surviving, but thriving. And that really leaves just one question to think about in your own organization.